Sir, thank you for giving an interview for Dalit Camera, and thank you both of you. So this Prajavani, there was a recently in EPW, short brief was given about what the data collected, what was the intention of the data, about why the data, so that you collected, and majorly you were trying to question how the caste was discussed in public discourse and how that has been moderated. The discourse has been moderated towards reservation, atrocities, like this very shortly. Therefore, it was like the stigmatized topic, and you were also trying to say about, you were trying to look, so that entire discourse of this Prajavani and approaching the newspaper, an idea cropping up, okay, let us have a courage to approach the editor and regional editor, and not English editor, that also you can refer why regional editor, and especially Kannada, so that you can narrate the short story of how you came to make up that entire data collection, the idea how it cropped up.
Thank you, Ravi. The origin of this, in some sense, goes back to the cracked mirror, which Gopal and me wrote, and there are a lot of questions about it from various people, including both of us have been at Hegodu Ninasam, which has been organizing this cultural festival for a long time, and every time these questions came about, caste experiences and so on. And so and also in Karnataka there is now one movement by one group of people who have also been publicly claiming that there's nothing called caste. So there are all these kinds of questions which were around us, and then when we were in Hegodu again, and Akshara, who is a theatre director who runs Ninasam, we were talking to him about how would we talk about this in a public sense. So what we did was, Akshara also invited Shantakumar, who is executive editor of this paper called Prajavani, which is a Kannada sister paper of Deccan Herald. Deccan Herald is one of the biggest circulation in Bangalore, and Prajavani is a Kannada version of that. And so Shantakumar, Gopal, Akshara and myself sat and had a long meeting, and I must tell you that we were very surprised when we met him, because Gopal and me had been thinking about doing this kind of a public thing in a regional language, as you said, for very clear reasons, because English readership is not of interest to us in this debate, first. Secondly, with the kind of the English readership has also been propagating this question that there's no caste, particularly in urban areas and all that, and that's where their basic readership is. So it was not going to be useful for us to do this kind of a question. The second very major objective for us was to see what people think about caste experiences. And we thought, let them tell us what it was. So that was the aim of the overall project in the way Gopal and me thought about it. And the third point was this, that we often felt there's a disconnect between social theorizing about caste and social experience and people's own understanding of it. So in a sense, we were trying to do two things. One, take ideas from theorists into the domain of people, so they respond to it. And two, see what they talk about their own experience. So no new theory can be generated from their experience, not from the way theorists are looking at the experience. That was I would say, some set of, maybe Gopal will add a few more things to it. And then when Shantakumar met us, and he was completely, he was so supportive, we thought we will just begin. We wanted to ask him, can you give us half a sheet? How much space can you give, for how long? He looked at it and he spoke to us for 10 minutes and he said, yes, I can give you a full sheet every Monday. That is a full center page, okay? And no editorial input from their side. He just said, I'll give you a full center sheet on Monday. And then we were wondering how to ask him how many weeks should he run or what. He said, I'll give it to you for 6 months. Is that enough? So we had no clue we could even run this for 6 months. Because, a full sheet, we don't know what are you going to write for 6 months. 25 issues they did. And we were very clear what we wanted was a space. We would start off with some article, which we both wrote, and then ask a large number of people to write and put selected letters and also selected articles from different groups and communities. So 3-4 weeks we had a wonderful, I think one of the best discussions was about from the entertainment industry. There's a directors and actors by themselves they wrote. Yakshagana artists wrote about it, the practice of caste in Yakshagana, and so wonderful archiving of such material came out. And we also did one which we really liked, which did not succeed very much. We wanted to have recipes of different castes, because you see, when 7 lakh people are reading it, we wanted to say, look, what is it? You guys don't even know the other to such an extent. You don't even know what food they eat. Yeah. And we thought if you share recipes, tomorrow we can actually make those dishes and see what kind of new world we can all participate in. So festivals, music, arts, everything was thought to be covered. And I think on the whole, we had an enormous amount of responses. And right from the beginning, Prajavani was very clear we would archive it. And Gopal and me were very clear on this. This is a public project. We don't have any ownership on it. It will be put on the public site. And again, this Shantakumar, along with doing this 6 months, he said, we will set up a website for you. Exclusively for this. Within Prajavani, they have set up a full website. And as Ismail, we must also thank NAM Ismail, who was a central key. He not only supported us administratively, but also intellectually, everything. He helped us do everything. And for those 6 months, not a single word they told us what to do. They edit what we wrote. We wrote some of the articles are very provocative. Among the end one, we had a full page article called The Worm of Merit. It was a very strong critique of the idea of merit, a full page. It was actually called The Worm of Merit. Not a single word, nothing they spoke about. And when we met Shantakumar afterwards more than once, he said, we went to thank him. He said, oh, great, you helped us. He said, no, we should thank you because, so many people, including government people, have been telling him, this is a great thing you did. Because he was saying, people wanted to talk about it, but they didn't have the thing to do. So I think that vision of his was great. So that was the larger thing, and this is how we set up. I mean, there are plus and minus of it. I think Gopal will also tell us a lot more about it. But on the whole, I thought, we had started a small thing. And I think Gopal's original point was also this, that we wanted to do it in Marathi, Telugu, and so on. Because he said, unless, Malayalam and other places, because, to see what is it, to break open this stuff about only some people talking about caste and so on. So we started in a very small, humble way, actually. We didn't even think it would become, so much readership, so many thousands of letters which will come in. And now it's all been archived, and as we have put in the EPW, and in fact, Prajavani has now published a book of the whole 25 pages. The whole issue of 6 months, they have compiled, they have published the book. They're waiting for Gopal to go to Bangalore to release it. So once he goes, they will release the book. Oh, background claps, yeah.
So that basically in caste issue, one is when you said about recipe, music, and various other industries. So that caste in for example, in a university space, there will be caste always discussed, but you won't get a space. When you give a space, automatically they will come. So that in that experience, did you find any shocking kind of exposure, in the sense shocking kind of an information, inputs you got from that? And also, did you find for your knowledge that some departments, some areas, like especially film, I'll just take you back for a reference. Recently there was one person who died, actor who died in Andhra Pradesh. Many of the Brahmins went and complained that it is a discrimination for Brahmins, that's why he committed suicide. And then I was trying to find a Dalit, an SC person within the film industry. I was very nil to find, and they said there are people, they may not come out openly. So that such kind of a thing, did you find, when you gave a space, everybody came? There was a restriction, so that these 2 points, would you?
That thing, yeah. So, okay, actually the first article itself started with the provocation. And when we wrote that article, in Karnataka, universities, we began with this thing. We said it's not only people who have caste, institutions have caste. That's how we began the first paragraph of our whole series with. We said, Bangalore University in Karnataka, this is how they call these universities. Bangalore University is called Dalit University. Dharwad University is called Lingayat University. Mysore University is called Vokkaliga University. Okay, this is how people refer to it. So, we wrote in that first, we began by saying institutions have caste, not just people, and said, a lot of people say this about these 3 universities. So then we called Ismail and told him to talk to the editor and said, if we put this, is it okay for you? Because, people might object and protest. They said, no, we put it, let us see what happens. They said, put what it is, it's okay, we'll try. And what is the most shocking thing? Not a single person responded to it. You know why? They say, yes, it's true. They don't think it is something which they should protest and say, no, no, how can you call this Okaliga Lingayat Dalit University? It was quite shocking, you know. But in that sense, so already when we, when it began, there's also something else I should say. When we contacted a lot of these Kannada intellectuals and others also, some were not ready to write. They said they would, but I think they didn't see where this will go. So there's a little bit of hesitancy. As far as the arts thing, which I thought was the most interesting one, I think there was a director, Kannada director, where all of these were very well-known figures. I think he's a Dalit director, if I remember right. He wrote a piece, a provocative piece, saying there's no discrimination. What is this? I am a Dalit, I've been director, I've done very well. It is just about what you do and stuff. Then a very well-known actor, and that was a big coup for us. He said, I want to write. And he wrote a much long article saying, giving some 10 instances of discrimination. He is not a Dalit, the OBC. He wrote a piece saying, no, 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 there are all these things which happen. And then Yakshagana, there's a great Yakshagana person in, he was Shivaram Karan's student, very inspiring person. He's in Udupi actually.
It was very, very...
Yeah, Sanjeev Sona, they wrote a whole lot. He's very wonderful thing. He had first written a piece on how he was not allowed entry into the temple and he was playing the mela, the drums. And then one of the persons there takes him into the temple and said the Yakshagana will not play if he doesn't come. And he charts about the whole issue and so on. So in Yakshagana, we had a lot of articles actually on folk theatre. Quite a few articles detailing how caste plays a role. And there are some really horrendous stories and we are so glad they came out. Like including within a Yakshagana troupe, there are still different eating places for the Brahmin, because a lot of Brahmins do Yakshagana in that region. So there are still different eating places for the same Yakshagana troupe, and they're full night they work, etc., etc. So all of those were detailed, and everything came out in the paper, and we didn't have any great reaction to it. People did not get angry, shout at the news. There are always one group of elements on both sides. One element, everything we wrote. There is one very interesting article, some but it was, if I remember right, one letter. He wrote more than one letter. He wrote a letter saying, oh, now you people want Dalits also to become, everybody to become equal, and they will also, now Dalits will also become priests. Now our temples, then they can give meat and wine to the gods. He didn't even realize the irony, because there is happening in so many temples. He didn't realize the irony of it, but we printed that also, because he is speaking for...
Actually, the offering meat and goat meat or chicken meat is a normal thing even in the upper caste temples, right from Nainital, Kalamoda down to Karnataka and Udupi and things like that, So I think what was at the issue was not that we were looking for caste in Karnataka or in Andhra, but we were interested in the question that you tumble on caste, and caste is waiting for you to be confronted. So it was actually against the mainstream imagination, the high caste elite imagination that there is no caste and it is the cunning of the social scientists or British colonialists to fabricate caste through files and census and all that, is kind of governmentality. But that is not the issue. The book view of caste was to be confirmed by the field view of caste. Okay. That is to say, we are not going to fabricate caste through our Prajavani or something, but it is there. It is at the level of people who would really tell us whether this caste or not. And so there are about 5,000 to 6,000 or more than 6,000 letters confirming that there is caste which is there kicking and staring at your face. So there is no cunning involved. So that was an honest. That's the methodology of really producing. Looking at caste through this public dialogue, Jati Samvada. So that was the issue. And so second object of this whole project was to really create a very solid conceptual language, vocabulary for these college teachers and students, so that they can really elevate the discussion on caste. For example, in this case, Kannada. And that's what we had this ambition to carry it forward in different other vernacular languages like Marathi, Tamil, Malayalam, and Telugu, and just to begin with. But we should really thank Shanta Kumar and his team for having taken this initiative to really focus caste on a center page every Monday and for 6 months. It's actually a very, very big contribution in terms of understanding the contemporary nature and incarnation of caste. So to that extent, I think Prajavani project is offering a new methodology to really pursue caste studies in colleges and in the universities. So to that extent, I think we but as one of the problems was this caste in vernacular and absence of caste in English. That was the experience, because many of the letters were actually they were actually politically correct. So we couldn't get the authentic take on caste. So to that extent, I think there was some limitation in this project. But by and large, people wrote about it and they participate about it, and they accepted. There was a public acknowledgement that there is caste, and we can't really avoid the existence of caste. However hard people try to say that there is no caste and caste is a rumor, is something which is untenable, at least in case of the Karnataka experience. And so we are not there. Both I and Sundar are not there to really produce caste through some cunning or something, which is there. Yeah. It is there in the perception, in the practice of people, not in Karnataka but neighboring states as well. So people have to really actually give some credence to this methodology. So that was all about caste questions and Prajavani and taking caste to the public debate, to the people. Yeah.
Can you just
Yeah.
add one more information on the letters? This was about the urban question, because everybody says, right, they quoted Ambedkar on this. So in urban case, there is no caste. So we would ask questions. In first few articles, we would write a general article. We would ask various questions, and so one of the questions about urban situation, and it is quite interesting the amount of letters which came about, from people who said they don't get houses in Bangalore. We focus on the amount of now gated communities. In fact, that's what we also called it. We call it casted communities, because gated communities today are outwardly advertising that only this community will buy a house there. There's no more hiding, everywhere. Bangalore, biggest gated communities are becoming like that. Some people are saying only this kind of Brahmins, some other place only this kind of Lingayats or Okkali or whatever it is. They're all becoming like that explicit. And a lot of people wrote in saying how they couldn't get house, how they were asked to read house. One person wrote about saying they had almost got the house, and that fellow somewhere, some owner something, saw Ambedkar photo in his house. And he realized this guy is not, he shouldn't give the house to him. He said, that he immediately knew that was the clue. So there were all these letters which they wrote, and this is in the public domain, so people can accept or respond. There are also very nice, very naive, wonderful letters. There was one where the person who wrote saying it was addressed to one of the Swamijis. There are many Kannada Swamijis, there are many of them, right? And I think a man or a woman perhaps. Probably it was a woman, I should check. We can check that. And we printed this also. She said, I don't belong to a privileged caste. She's not a Dalit. One of these other castes. And she said, but I know it is better to belong to that other caste, some other caste. And she said she wrote to that Swamiji to saying, please take me into your caste so I can have a better caste. It was very innocently interesting, So there were many. I think one wonderful piece. This person, the director at NSD, she wrote an article. Very nice piece. She's been working in Rajasthan, and she wrote an article in English which we got translated. She spoke about how she's been working with the Dalits and tribals in terms of theatre. She gave this experience of these higher caste people going and spending night with these women. Okay, belonging to these kinds of so-called lower communities of different kinds. And you know what she said? She said they will go spend the night with that woman, but they will take their own water. It was really a very, very powerful piece. And we published it, full thing,
I think this caste question acquires different dimensions when it is actually played out in the urban context. Actually, then you can pretend to be casteless, and then you actually play out not in the direct format, so to say, as it is the case in the rural areas. No, you are denied water, you are denied passage, you are denied food and all that. But here it is something else. If you go to a particular upper caste house, a Dalit goes and the fellow knows that this fellow is from the Dalit community. So they will practice. Then capitalism comes. The plastic capitalism comes as a very handy solution to the problem. You know, if you want water, they won't give you water, they will give you Coca-Cola, because you can dispense with Coca-Cola. They can give you tender coconut water, so you can dispense with it. You know, that's how it is very systematically. And to say the least about caste, if caste is a rumor, but rumor has legs and wings too. You know, you ask any. I think that was not visible in Karnataka case, but you know, before you join a particular office, your caste is known. So the caste is actually flying with legs. So let us accept this. There's no point in not accepting it. Okay. But you have to really then work out the metaphysics of it, the theory of it, you know. And so people are not interested in really taking it head on in terms of theory, but just dismissing it as an assertion. No, there's no caste. It won't do, because people will take objection to it. But some people are really interested in saying that we follow caste.
Or reducing it just to, you know, there's this other very interesting piece by Du Saraswati, whom Gopal talked to. She's a
D. Saraswati is the important Dalit activist from Bangalore, and she is working among the scavengers and sanitary workers and rag pickers. And she says these people face so much of caste discrimination from the upper caste localities. And so she also wrote, and we of course requested her to write about it. You know, we also solicited articles from people who are knowledgeable, who have worked, and so it was not two persons, laboratory producing caste questions. You know, no, it was very participatory. People they wrote, and there was an independent initiative on the part of people to write about caste. So we did not prompt them. So it was actually promptless campaign that was carried out through Prajavani, I think.
Can I just say one more sentence about D. Saraswati, that article of hers? Again, a very interesting thing about her. You know what she said? In an urban area, she was talking about the caste in urban area. If I remember right, again we should translate that article, but please read that article, whoever wants to read it. She makes a point that 90%, I think, the numbers we'll have to check, but very large amount, like 90%, it's part of this thing. She wrote in Kannada. And what is interesting is this. She said, we think that in an urban IT city like Bangalore, the caste divisions don't operate. She said 90% of scavengers are Dalits. And they are working in IT companies, they are working in public spaces. You know, everybody who is doing the 90% of them are Dalits. She said, what is happening therefore in a city structure that you are reproducing that? Although now with blue color uniforms in IT companies. But that is happening. No, that is very
we should thank the Dalit camera actually, yeah.
There is some. Sir, actually, in this connection, so there was a data. For example, this is all data kind of a sociological study. For example, this Robert F. Kennedy and Navasarjan, both of them joined together and went and researched in Gujarat to find out the caste discriminations. Then they charted out the map. They listed out what kind of a caste discrimination. So that listed. So that I just, what kind of a forms and all.
That's what they are saying.
Yeah, so that in this actually, the 6,000 and more letters, if I have to ask you, what kind of a discriminations can be charted out? In the sense, is it the discriminations already the public knowledge has, or else that you found, no, we have to draw a different kind of a census in this data?
Ravi, since he knows Kannada, I don't know, I can't read, I can't speak authoritatively on this, but then there are, sequentializing or producing forms of discrimination is not, it's important, but what is important is the spaces of discrimination. So you will find them in educational institutions, you will find them in terms of eating habits, in terms of temple entry is one usual thing, but music, cinema, theatre, everywhere you find it. Yakshagana is one example that. So there are spaces within which these forms of discrimination based on caste are accommodated. So what is important is not the individualized, isolated discriminatory form. Methodologically, it will be wrong to really isolate them, but to really connect them to the spaces. That's
Is there any space which was very accommodative for this Dalit culture?
I have to think, let me just very quickly, one point just add to what Gopal is saying. The feeling that we got, see, a lot of people also wrote in saying, look, there is no conscious discriminatory practices, and they see that as become as part of cultural habits. They don't see it as discrimination. They say, well, we go here, if we go to this temple, they allow these people, you go there, they eat that. They didn't see. Therefore, I think if you want to theorize around it, which we haven't done, not directly like this, there is both a positive and a negative sense. Just like positive liberty and negative sense of liberty, a positive act of discrimination and a negative act which is not a removal of obstruction. It's present there, and lot of people we found, and I think there was some genuine puzzle. And I must also say there was genuine reaction to saying, oh, you guys are trying to create caste divisions in the society and all that. But the puzzlement was just this. We discussed a lot about it. It's just like, look, why are, we are not at all discriminatory. It's amazing how many people felt they are not discriminatory at all.
I mean, the larger point is about this, that's the important point actually, you might really find some instances where you will not find discriminations, as that Dalit actor was saying, or director, whoever his name is, that he has not faced discrimination. But that is one isolated, individualized fact. But that is not to say that caste as a structural reality doesn't exist. It has ceased to operate as a structural reality. Whereas, 99% people are saying this caste, and this fellow has to really accept that there is a structural dimension to caste. One individual liberation of caste in a particular context does not mean there is no caste and there is an end to caste. So that's one. This is called a methodological fallacy of individual methodological individualism. That is what. But this is a different point. We have to work on it actually. Yeah.
So one more thing is the women. So that the writings, if you differentiate between women and men. So that major point of women, certainly if I take the stereotype knowledge also, it would be very few writings would have been come from women, or so that what was the response of women comparing with this, and what was the basic thing they were arguing around?
In terms of the letters, we see there is a thing we should confess, that many of the letters we couldn't see. I mean, Gopal was in Delhi and I was in Manipal, and all the letters were sent to Bangalore. So sometimes when we got a chance when in Bangalore, I could go vaguely look at it, but I could always talk to Gopal every day on the phone to tell him if we read a letter and so on. But there are a lot of letters which I couldn't read. And Ismail did this job. I mean, he did a great job. I think one of the really remarkable job. Madhva made some translations here, but the letters which came, Ismail sorted it out yeah. We tried to get women to write, and they did have, quite a few of them wrote. In terms of, by the way, there were one special, I mean, like the special issues like recipe, arts and entertainment. We also had, I think, 2 or 3 weeks on intercaste marriage. That is a very big thing in Karnataka. Almost there are so many Vedikes which are all intercaste marriage. Even in Udupi, there's a very strong organization which supports intercaste marriage and so on. And there are women who shared intercaste marriage problems. There are quite a few on the kinds of problems which they had in intercaste marriages. So there were sufficient amount of women in that, but it was more in that kind of. Yeah.
So you won't ask any question? Okay, sir. One more thing is, see, one of the crucial fact of this entire writing is, when I was reading, it was very touching. In the sense, it was confession that there is a gap between the practice and theory. That was in the sense it was given that in the theoretical format and the practical life, it is not there. Therefore, it was a initiation to take these all things forward in a way to say that the doors which are closed, let us open. And also the way to analyze how the city in caste operates. Because even many of us get frustrated when we always switch on the television channel, when Kailanji massacre or any massacre, they don't keep debate at all. They'll be debating some random thing. And if only debate they organize as a reservation. The only point they humiliate us as a reservation. And that too they say that, okay, why do you want reservation? That is the only point. And it was very strongly in your article, it was portrayed in the brief EPW article. That was very remarkable work actually what you have done. So that last one thing my friend was asking, that whether any communication from upper caste population regarding discrimination.
This question about reservation is a terrible, as you very correctly say, and that's why when we called it a worm, We genuinely wanted to provoke it and answer that. And I must, I mean, it's not a, you know, we are sufficiently humbled by the whole experience. But I must tell you, people who are reacting to reservation after reading this piece got back to us and said, thank you for writing that. You know, the people who are against it. I tell you, if there is one point, as you correctly said, a point of fissure in all many of the letters, it was thinking that reservation is discrimination against the upper castes. And that is why we did this reservation in the end. We let all that steam come repeatedly week after week, you know, and we said okay. But that you are very correct. That is a point which has now become so much a part of public discourse. I think
It's
it's
a very interesting point, you know. No, let us not really reduce the whole gamut of caste question to a very small problem of reservation. So we purposely started with some other broad question on caste, not reservation, because general mood of the people in this country is to reduce all the caste questions to reservation, which is really very unfair to the concept of social justice and other things. So that we avoided. I mean, we played little bit of strategic thinking, so that we could really get some elicit some information from the people honestly, so that our misleading theory can be properly informed about what is happening at the level of practice of caste. So that let's hope now people will react to this at the level of theory, whether their theory is really adequate enough to really understand the changing reality in our country. As of today, caste theories are dated. So that's it.
So last and final. This is because I was thinking one topic was not covered. So you were saying that one is about the Dalit scavengers who are working in the Mumbai city, in the Bangalore. So that when this discrimination was quoted, like Mala, Madhya, there are different Dalit caste also talk about discriminations. So that did you find any letters whichever letters you have glimpsed through? Yeah, within the breakup, within Karnataka, whether Dalits said that no, there are differences between Dalits, were that also articulated there?
Not in the letters as far as I remember. Definitely not the Mala Madhiga thing like in Andhra. In fact, the only thing which came about was in another discussion, which we also talked. Remember when the tension between the tribal and the Dalit group, but that is surrounding this thing, but not as a letter, where they were pointing out different caste systems within.
They have different forums, Ravi. They don't want to discuss here. They want to they Mala Madhika or in Kerala. Of course, you will have some discussion on this. No, let's not have discussion on that. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, and I hope that this is published in Tamil Nadu and especially in Marathi, sir. You left Maharashtra and went to Karnataka, sir.
Yeah,
And
Maharashtra is so important, the land of Phule, Ambedkar and Shaumaras, we really need to have some kind of face lifting of all this caste hypocrisy, actually, some kind of, social reform hypocrisy, actually. You're producing caste everywhere and Kharlanji and other things, what else. But people, those who should really take this forward are the ones who are actually stuck in all kinds of non-productive, very regressive politics. And you have seen in Vadala and other places, Okay, thank you, Ravi. Thanks.
so thank you both of you.